This is Derrick Broze. This is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance. I'm here in Standing Rock.
That man is wanted in 5 different countries: Chile, Argentina, Brazil.
We've been fighting a long time. We've all lost so very much. So many loved ones gone.
Don't you fucking tease that horse!
You are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Above all, stay alive. You have no idea how important you are. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. And this evening I have some breaking news for you this afternoon, this evening, wherever you're at, about the ongoing case in Utah, which I've been following. Those of you who've been following my work for the last months, you know that I've been staying on this story of ritual abuse, specifically ritualized sexual abuse of children going on in Utah. And this all started back in June for me, and was first announced May 31st by the Utah County Sheriff's Office, stating that they were investigating ritualized child sexual abuse. And for the last 4, now going on 5 months, I've been investigating, following up with this. I've been writing about the story. I've released the documents related to the case. We're going to talk more about that in just a moment. And I've also investigated the history of ritual abuse in Utah, the history of ritual abuse in the Mormon Church. That led me to another investigation called Justice Delayed. So I say all that to say that I've spent a good now 4 to 5 months deeply ingrained in this specific topic. And I've also researched this topic before when it came to the Finders Cult and Jeffrey Epstein. This is not my first time dealing with this case. So I want you to know that I take it very seriously. I also take the victims' stories and sharing their stories and making sure that they're not forgotten very seriously. So I say all that to say we actually have some good news tonight, this evening, in this report we're going to be doing. Before we get into that, though, I want to remind you guys to bookmark my website, theconsciousresistance.com, theconsciousresistance.com. This is where I've been producing all of my content, my documentaries, my books, my articles, essays, podcasts, interviews, etc., 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 public presentations and talks since 2012. You can go here to theconsciousresistance.com. All of my social media is here. You know, I get this question sometimes. People say, Derrick, where do I find your book? Derrick, where do I find your latest report? It's always going to be theconsciousresistance.com. So documentaries, investigations, books, presentations, everything I've done, it's here. Go here. And also the topic of tonight, this arrest which has been made in the Utah ritual abuse case of this man, for those who are looking on the screen, David Hamblin. The sources of what I'm going to cover are listed here as well, as they always are. So again, theconsciousresistance.com is the home to get all of my content. And as I just said, this man, David Lee Hamblin, a former member of the Mormon Church, has been arrested within the last 24 hours for a number of really disturbing things. We're about to go over that. Before I do, though, I want to preface this by saying, and I think this is necessary for some people, that we are about to cover some disturbing allegations against this man involving ritual abuse, rape, violence against young children. If that is something you cannot handle, I encourage you to stop watching the video now, because I've talked about this case previously, but I have avoided going into the details because we didn't know 100% yet if this man, David Lee Hamblin, was the actual victim. I've talked about this since June, and I've told you guys, hey, there's this guy, David Lee Hamblin. He was accused of rape of several people, violent rape, sodomy, etc. Back in 2012, he was arrested. The case was dismissed in 2014 because of a lack of evidence. Well, that's not exactly true. Excuse me. The case was dismissed without prejudice because the prosecution had trouble getting the evidence from law enforcement and from other people. They were, quote, dragging their feet. And so the case was eventually just had to be dismissed because they couldn't get the evidence they needed, but dismissed without prejudice, which means that it could be brought back against this man, as it has now been. David Lee Hamblin, former therapist, former member of the church, who is known for hypnotizing his patients, telling people that he could cure them of their homosexuality and then abusing them. He was also involved in some sort of, I don't think he's a Native American. He may have some Native blood in him, but he had a different name that he used, whether real or pretending, to be involved in a peyote church in Utah. So there's a lot going on here, right? And if you're totally new to this, I'm going to encourage you to go to theconsciousresistance.com and just search Utah. You should be able to find all of my reports really quickly. I'll show you what pops up, because I've done some deep dives on this and I don't want to repeat everything I've done over the videos, but here, go here back to June 13th, or even the earliest one, June 9th. Utah sheriffs announced investigation into ritualized child sex abuse. Then update number 1, update number 2, update number 3, the history, update number 4, David Levitt under investigation, update number 5, the Mormon Church, and then now we actually have an arrest. So I've been on this case and I take it very seriously. But let me start off from the beginning. The sheriff's office, this man on the right-hand side, Sheriff Mike Smith, Utah County Sheriff, announced an investigation into ritualized child sexual abuse May 31st. Within a day and a half, the man on the left side of your screen, David Levitt, who is the Utah County Attorney. His brother is the former governor of Utah, Mike Levitt. His father is a very wealthy, powerful man in the insurance agency and insurance department. His name is Dixie Levitt. So sheriff on the right side of your screen and David Levitt, County Attorney, on the left side. So after the sheriff announces investigation into ritual sexual abuse, David Levitt holds a press conference, the county attorney, where he releases to the press a 151-page victim statement. And he says, hey, this investigation that was just announced about ritualized child sexual abuse, it names me and my wife in there, and it accuses us of being pedophiles and cannibals. And I'm here to say we are not pedophiles or cannibals. And it was just like, what the heck did he just say? And of course, the sheriff and the police, the sheriff's department, they respond. They're saying, we're not going to comment on any suspects. We haven't named any suspects. That's what's so crazy is David Levitt just totally stepped himself into this and said, hey, I'm not a cannibal. I'm not a pedophile. Me and my wife are not involved in this. And he said, this is all politically motivated. They're trying to get me out of office. Well, the election in Utah came. He lost, which means by January, he will be just a normal citizen. He won't be a county attorney or government employee. And I was able to get copies of let me pull this up for you, get copies of the court records related to David Hamblin, which is the man that has been arrested now. So I'm trying not to confuse this, right? David Levitt, the man on your screen on the left, county attorney. David Lee Hamblin is the therapist who has now been arrested, the man up here. But they were friends. They knew each other, right? And so David Levitt, we have suspected that he spoke up and sort of put his foot in his mouth because he was concerned. He was like, oh no, they're going to, the sheriffs are investigating ritual sexual abuse. Somebody might have told him and leaked him and said, hey, they're going after David Lee Hamblin. And David Levitt remembered, oh my God, me and my wife are listed and accused in the documents against David Lee Hamblin. Okay. So David Levitt loses his investigation, or loses his election, and he has since gone on and kind of stayed out under the radar. But I did do a report for those who saw that 2 weeks ago, where I was showing how NBC News, they actually did this satanic panic is coming back and all these fake allegations of ritual abuse. And they talked specifically about the Utah case. I believe that NBC potentially knew somebody, I don't have evidence for this, but I believe that somebody at NBC might have known that the case was there was going to be an arrest soon. And so they published this article trying to make it all sound like it's satanic panic, fake, silly allegations. And they interviewed David Levitt. And I did a video showing, debunking the whole thing and showing you how, basically how it's garbage, and how they totally left out the true story of that David Levitt is currently under investigation for suspicion of human trafficking related to a adoption scheme, that David Levitt lied when he said that the 2012 case where he's listed and his wife are listed as potential cannibals, that it was a tragically mentally ill person. For those who are watching on screen, I'm at thelastamericanvagabond.com. If you go to the navigation at the top, see Broze series, those are my articles. Scroll down here, Utah ritualized sexual abuse investigation. This is the investigation I've done about this story we're covering here. So I've done 5 articles, 6 videos, and this is what I want to show you. I reported back then that David Levitt was lying, as I was just telling you. He lied, saying that the person who made the accusations was mentally ill. That's not true. So he's victim blaming. He's lying. He also said the case was dismissed because of lack of evidence. And as I told you a couple moments ago, the case was not dismissed because of lack of evidence. The case was dismissed because somebody was dragging their feet and they took too dang long and they couldn't get the case together in time. So they had to let him go. And thus they said dismissed without prejudice, meaning it could be brought back. And we've suspected, but not known for certain, because the sheriffs have been doing their jobs, honestly, and they refused to name anybody. Even when David Levitt was calling the sheriff a QAnon sheriff and saying this is all BS. This guy is scared. I think David Levitt knows that he is probably next, because he would have never spoken up and said and volunteered, by the way, me and my wife are not cannibals, unless he was worried about the investigation. And so in this particular article here, Utah ritual sexual abuse, County Attorney David Levitt caught lying, police documents released. This is the second or third one in my series. I actually linked to the full files. We published these files against, which are about David Lee Hamblin, specifically this victim statement right here, which is the one that names David Levitt. This is why he spoke up, because, I can go here and show you where it says Levitt. I'll have to go through and find it. I can't remember exactly where it's at. Where it discusses that him and his wife being involved in sexual abuse cults. I mean, that's basically what it's about, right? So we've known that David Levitt was, for some reason, acted sketchy, but I've chosen not to tell you guys the full extent of these documents, because I didn't know if it was really about David Levitt. David Lee Hamblin. Now that David Lee Hamblin has been arrested, my friends, I think that it's time to really talk about what's in these documents. What is this man accused of? And well, we have this statement as well from the Utah County Sheriff's Office that sort of gives you a taste of what he's accused of. Excuse me, this is the wrong one. Let's go to the press releases right here. That's another one I want to show you in a second. There was another recent arrest in Utah about sexual abuse, and it just got me wondering, like, are these cases related? Here we go. Press release released today, September 28th. David Lee Hamblin arrested on multiple sexual offenses against children. David Lee Hamblin was booked in jail on 6 first-degree felony accounts of sexual offenses against children and 1 misdemeanor sex offense. This morning, investigators from the Utah County Sheriff's Office Special Victims Unit arrested David Lee Hamblin, 68, Provo, booked him into Utah County Jail for multiple first-degree felony sexual offenses against a child. Details regarding the arrest are documented in the probable cause statement that was filed in Utah County 4th District Court this morning. This investigation is ongoing, and additional information will be forthcoming. This case is being prosecuted by Juab County Attorney Ryan Peters, who has been deputized as a special prosecutor for the Utah County General's Office. Now, why is that important? Because David Levitt is the Utah County Attorney, right? And they're basically saying, instead of it being handled by the Utah County Attorney's Office, which is where David Levitt's at, because he's implicated in these documents, they had to deputize a special prosecutor from a different county, Attorney Ryan Peters, to lead this investigation. Now, what does that mean? To me, that indicates that David Levitt is absolutely about to be arrested, or at the very least, he is going to be questioned. And I'm not trying to make any predictions. I'm just saying all signs point to this guy is guilty, or at least suspected of being involved. And now the man whose victims name David Levitt and his wife has been arrested. If I was him, I'd be concerned. Thankfully, I'm not a child rapist, and I don't have to worry about those kind of things. This case is still being actively investigated. We will not discuss ongoing details of this case. We also will not discuss the names of victims, suspects, or witnesses who may be involved in the case. And here are the charges against therapist David Lee Hamblin. Sodomy of a child, first-degree felony, 3 counts. Rape of a child, first-degree felony, 1 count. Aggravated sexual abuse of a child, first-degree felony, 2 counts. Lewdness involving a child, Class A misdemeanor, 1 count. A judge has not yet set bail or approved the probable cause statement. Once the probable cause statement has been approved, we will make it available to the media. And I've already talked to Sergeant Spencer Cannon, who's the public information officer of the Utah County Sheriff's Office, and he's going to email me as soon as they do release that probable cause statement. And that'll just give us more details on what he was actually arrested for. And this is now being reported in local news, including Fox 13. Adam Hirbert, who's been one of the only local journalists in Utah, in Salt Lake City, to stay on this case. And so he's reporting on it again today. The news is now getting out there. And it was Adam Herbert's actually who previously did some reporting where even though he chose not to name David Lee Hamblin until now, he did mention that, hey, a therapist was named in potentially related documents. And there's a victim who basically says that they were hypnotized by David Lee Hamblin, that they were taken to him supposedly to cure their homosexuality, and then they ended up being abused by him and things like that. So this victim's name is Brett Bluth. One of Hamblin's alleged victims described a long period of abuse and grooming by Hamblin as he tried to, quote, heal him of his homosexuality. and he expressed optimism that charges would be filed against Hamblin. He said, quote, "I do think it will be different this time. Hypnosis was a big part of my treatment. Hamblin told me from the very beginning that that was his main technique. Dr. Hamblin would say, 'Do you want to be healed of your homosexuality or not?' And the answer was yes." So hypnosis going involved in this. And my hope, I mean, for one, can we just take a brief moment of silence and give some thanks that there is there's an arrest made at least, right? This doesn't mean he's going to go to prison. This doesn't mean that he's going to be held accountable. It doesn't guarantee anything yet. But good God, I am not going to lie there, guys. When I read this news and I got a message from my source saying, David Lee Hamlin's been arrested. You know, we were anticipating this kind of quietly behind the scenes and believing this was about to happen. I mean, I kind of shouted here in the house because it felt good for once to feel like not only could something potentially good come out of this, but, you know, again, I told you that I've been doing this because of the victims, not just for my own, like wanting to, not because I enjoy talking about this stuff or because anything like that. In fact, you know, there's other articles and topics I could write about if I wanted to get more attention, but writing about this and getting to speak with different sources, some who've spoken publicly during my investigations and some who are speaking to me anonymously, who have either been involved in this case and who have suffered abuse or who have been abused by members of the Mormon church or been abused by different people in the state of Utah and elsewhere, and who have told me and provided evidence to me of cover-ups, of this information being buried or ignored, and to see some actual arrest happen. I'm not going to lie, it feels good for the moment. Now, that doesn't mean that this is over. This doesn't mean that I'm done writing about this. In fact, now that we know it's about David Lee Hamblin, we have a lot more that we're going to share with you guys. I have a source that is going to go public within the next week or two, and they are going to provide a lot more information about this case, and we'll see where it goes. And I hope for the best that this man is actually held accountable, and that he's sent to prison for the rest of his life. But that's not the end of it. We have to remember that David Lee Hamblin, for those of you who remember when I was going over these documents, David Lee Hamblin is just one piece of the puzzle, all right? In the documents, the court documents here, the ones I showed you that we have over here in my investigation, right here, we made them all available. You can literally, here I'm clicking it, it's going to start downloading a zip file. This link, I'm going to share it in the chat wherever you're watching. I'll try to share it there real quick. You can download all the files. And guys, these are disturbing files. If you have a stomach to read these, then you're, you know, good on you, but it's very difficult. They describe, it's basically hundreds of pages, at least 8 different victim statements made against David Lee Hamblin of children describing being not just like, you know, raped in bed and, you know, somebody comes and sneaks in their bed and does some horrible things to them, but ritualistically involving parties, groups of people. They name names in there. Some of these people are still around. One of them is a famous ad director. One of them is a well-known potter. There's another one that we're going to start naming next week now that some of these documents are out. And yeah, so those documents also do describe some of these groups praying to Lucifer. That's not Derrick Broze's words. That's in the documents. And again, these are allegations at the moment. We don't have the proof of it, but these are victims, alleged victims of David Lee Hamblin, who made these accusations against him in 2012. The case was then dismissed without prejudice in 2014, and now he has been arrested by the Utah County Sheriff's Office in relation to their investigation to ritualized child sexual abuse. Those documents describe children being put into boxes, forcibly left in boxes for hours, and then when they get out, they can barely move their legs or walk, and then one of the kids being taken over in the room and hearing screaming and abuse. One of them describes they describe a hierarchy within this specific sex cult that apparently they claim, the victims claim, operates in 3 different counties or did in the 90s. Who knows if it's still around, but the people are still alive, like David Lee Hamblin, in 3 different counties in Utah, where people were coming to each other's houses and holding these different sex parties involving kids, certain families. And yes, some of the kids describe that people were killed at the parties and that one of the guys would literally wear their skin. And he believed he was taking on the energy or the life force of the person that they had killed and then skinned. This guy literally would wear the skin suits and rape these children. This is what's in the documents, guys. This is not Derrick Broze's imagination. And again, I also can't tell you 100% if it's accurate, if it's true yet. We don't know that yet, right? That's the whole reason this investigation is ongoing. If you're just joining us, We're talking about the Utah ritual abuse case, sexual abuse case that I've been following since June. An arrest has been made against therapist David Hamblin. This is the man we suspected the case was about, and now we know 100%. This also means that Utah County Attorney David Levitt, who did know David Hamblin and is named in the documents against David Hamblin from 2012, that he is likely a suspect as well. We already know that he is a suspect of a Department of Homeland Security investigation involving an adoption scheme of a Native American girl from Montana. And he also has some connections to Ukraine. There's definitely some weird stuff going on with David Levitt as well. So, yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and bring this story to you guys tonight. Since we found out, I'm going to be tomorrow, I'll be doing an article, go deeper and kind of put this into written form, because I like to do video and writing for those who, want to consume different content. And that'll be published on The Last American Vagabond tomorrow. I'm also going to be doing an interview with Jason Burmis tomorrow. So if you're hearing this live, that'll be Thursday. And I'm going to continue to follow this case. So expect a new article and expect an interview with Jason Burmis. And as I did say a moment ago, we have a source deeply connected and close to this case who is going to be coming out public very soon and sharing their story about what they know about David Hamblin and abuse in Utah and cover-ups by police and law enforcement, which is, I think, probably where I'll end it tonight, to say this, that while it does feel good to see an arrest happen, does that mean that I'm confident that this is going to, lead to justice? No, I'm not, because while this guy may not be as famous or well-known or connected as somebody like Epstein, he's definitely connected to people in the Mormon church and different powerful people in Utah. And my guess is those people in Utah and in the Mormon church might be pretty nervous now that David Hamblin has been arrested. They might be concerned what he could potentially say if he strikes a deal. Now that he knows he's going down, he got away in 2012, but now they took him back. He's probably like, oh, okay, I'm screwed now. He might be willing to sing this time. And there might be some powerful people who don't want that to happen. So one possibility is that David Hamblin kills himself in prison, in jail, before, while waiting for trial. Another is that it does go to court and, it's rigged and the judge lets him off, or whatever, happens. He gets a rigged jury, something like that. And the other possibilities are that justice is actually served. He actually is found guilty and does go to prison for the rest of his life and dies in prison for the crimes he committed against these children. But unless more people are arrested, then justice will not fully have been served. If they only focus on David Hamblin and they don't focus on the other names and this organized ring that is listed and detailed in these documents, which the Utah County Sheriff's Office original investigation, their press release, stated that they were focused on 3 different counties, ritualized abuse taking place between the 1990s and 2010. And so that, maybe they are looking at a broader picture. I don't know that they're only focused on David Hamblin, but if they're arresting him now, that means that they have more evidence than they had in 2014. And they did say once that in the last 3 months since they announced this investigation, there's been over 130 tips sent to the Utah County Sheriff's Office. So by now they must have enough evidence to feel strong enough to make an arrest. They got a probable cause arrest from a judge and were able to go get him. And now he's in the county jail for the moment. So this could be some real justice, but it also could be a cover-up. It could be, he kills himself supposedly, right? Or there's a rigged case and he gets off and we're told, yeah, it was all, that's it, and they finally find him not guilty with prejudice, meaning that the case is dead and it can never be brought back again, and then it's covered up, right? Sometimes the easiest way to cover up something is to give the people a little bit of the truth. You make the guy go to court, you get a favorable judge or a jury or whatever, and they find him not guilty, and that's it. Because it's found not guilty, he can't be tried again, right? Because that would be it. So I don't know what's going to come from here, but I'm going to continue to stay on the case. And as I said, I'm going to continue to report and provide information, exclusive information and I'm not trying to, toot my own horn or whatever, but I've been providing you information that you're not finding anywhere else. The videotape about the Mormon Church and Gordon B. Hinckley, the tape I released 2 weeks ago about Are the Children Lying, the report from Brad Edwards about the satanic ritual abuse, and now this reporting on the the ritual abuse in Utah and the case against David Hamblin. The Last American Vagabond, myself and Ryan, we're the first ones to make the documents publicly available. There are a couple other people that have them available now, or at least they did. I think they might have taken them down, but we've made all the documents available, and we have more to release. And as I said, we have more sources that are going to come forward. So please continue to follow my work at theconsciousresistance.com. You can read my articles at thelastamericanvagabond.com. And thank you to everybody who supports me. If you've got a couple of extra bucks, go to theconsciousresistance.com/invest. You can send crypto to me if you want to support. You can send love letters or cash or hate mail if you prefer to my P.O. box. And seriously, I appreciate all of you, because this is not an easy topic to tackle. And there have been times over the last few months that have been very difficult, brought me to tears, really hearing these people's story and trying to just stay strong enough to continue to share it with you, because I think it's important. Because at the end of the day, even beyond getting justice and putting this man and these people involved in prison, what matters is that these victims' voices are heard. And that's what I'm fighting for. So thank you to everybody who continues to support my work and make sure that we can do that. Until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.